evening, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday, March 11th meeting. I would like to call for, actually, I would love to invite Trustee Sanchez to acknowledge the territory.
Thank you. On behalf of the board, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm honored and grateful to be a guest on the unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. And as a guest, I acknowledge that I've had the responsibility to educate myself on the Tsimshian history, culture, and relationship to the land. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And adoption of the agenda. Trustee Dalton, seconded. Trustee Meyer, all in favor? So moved. Superintendent Sanaway.
Thank you, Madam Chair, trustees and honored guests and people on the line. Tonight we have Michael McDowell, who's the Vice Principal at ACO Roosevelt Park Elementary School. And recently he took a trip with a number of students from K to 12 to Quebec. And he is here to share what he did while he was there.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, trustees. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I was kind of very blessed for the last, what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I know, to go to Quebec. Take a group of high schoolers with us, and so I'm gonna kind of show you some of our highlights that we have. We also have our friend Tuck Two, who I will explain a little later. This is a mascot through Experiences Canada, and they give it to every group that goes with them. So, and that way they can kind of take some photos with them. They're definitely into more social media and kind of showing off some of the different places across Canada that students go. So by all means, I'll let you guys check out Tuck Two, he's very cuddly. Our location that we were fortunate enough to go to was Quebec, particularly Saint Raymond. It's about 40 minutes outside of Quebec City, and beautiful place, very quiet. We kind of went through the process. When you kind of apply, you tell your story about who some of your students are, where they're from, etc. And Experiences Canada was able to pair us with Saint Raymond, and again, very similar community, about 10,000 people. I think it was a former kind of forestry town that has quieted down since then. But wonderful community, wonderful kids, and yeah, we'll show you kind of what we came across. I think you guys might have a decent idea about Experiences Canada, because given that it's been pretty popular for the last couple of years. It's a government program that is done through simple application, which pays for airfare for students, and through the housing, they twin you, so the students and families don't actually have to pay for lodging. So it greatly cuts down on the cost. And all told, I think, our students will probably pay less than $1,000 to get there and then for them to come back. So, yeah, an amazing experience. Whereas comparatively to like a similar experience from a fully paid and private company, we're talking 4 or 5 times that. So, yeah, we'll see if this works. All right, so what I brought with me was 10 French immersion students, grade 9, 11, no 10s. Oddly enough, and grade 12s. 9 of them were girls and 1 boy. 2 chaperones, myself and my wife Alicia was allowed to come. You're allowed for every 10, you're allowed to bring 2 chaperones. And Tuck Two, as I said, our friend here. And again, the official mascot. So one of our students who's coming from the airport, you guys probably recognize that. And you'll see Tuck Two through a few different photos as well. There we go. I went into this one because I was the person who was kind of planning it, and I didn't have a lot to kind of go off of, especially going back to Quebec. There were a few people, I think the last trip was about 10 years ago, maybe. And even some of our other friends who went back there, you could get a few things, but until you actually do it yourself, you don't really know. And the big one for us was travel days, and a lot of our students. So blessed where we are in this part of Canada. 2 days, one was sitting in overnight to Vancouver, which wasn't too bad. But then again, Vancouver to Ottawa to Quebec City, and then we bused to Saint Raymond. So have a couple of students right there doing some homework on the way. They were pretty good about that. I was actually quite impressed. They were fairly diligent, especially on the first day. Maybe they're just trying to get it over with, but they were on it, so that was kind of nice. And lots of smiles. You can see Tuck 2 there and various ones. And the bus was there to pick us up on their end. Our twins were ready for us at the airport, and it was about a 40-minute drive into town. So not too bad. But again, after a long day of crossing the entire country, the kids were definitely tired. And that's one thing I took away from it was Eastern Standard Time and Pacific Standard Time. There's some big differences, and that's gonna definitely come into my own planning when they come here in late May as well. So our first day, actually, we were there. We went bowling, and it was kind of a loose day. The folks who had done this for about 7 or 8 years, they've kind of had it nailed down and knew what they're doing. So just to kind of icebreaker, so to speak, they took us bowling and kind of get to know each other. You can see a few of our kids were definitely still tired and still sleeping on site, even despite some sleep, definitely some tiredness. And so I definitely gonna plan that in there for sure. It was kind of nice, especially for our kids, because we don't have a bowling alley locally. It was kind of I won't say foreign concept, but something they don't do very often. So they actually liked it pretty well. Later in the day, just again to give them some liberty and also not to overwhelm them. The rest of that day, day 3, was family day. And so a few of our students went to various different things with their different families. One went ice fishing, as you can see right there. The facility in the middle was an indoor soccer facility that was about 10 minutes out of town. So there was definitely a few kids who went to go watch some soccer. Nice setup from what I understand. And then there was some ice sledding. I think there was a few other families who had horses, so there's horseback riding in the snow. Again, a multitude of different things that you not have that same chance to do here in Prince Rupert. So most of the kids had a blast actually. So yeah, wasn't too bad. Day 4 was kind of our first full day in there. I didn't get too many photos of our first one, except for that particular one up in the corner, which was the mall. A lot of kids were definitely into mall shopping. And this wasn't a very small mall like ours. It actually had an amusement park inside, ice skating rink, roller coasters, all sorts of that, if you weren't into the shopping business. And then the rest of the mall was, yeah, you could do your heart's delight to go shopping if you want and spend some money. My daughter sadly is right in the middle, definitely getting her load of makeup, etc. But that's okay, she saved for it, and a lot of the kids did too. So it was kind of a nice way to, yeah, get that out of the way. We'll get into that more later, no worries. There was another mall visit, but it was fun. After that, we headed to the Museum of Civilization. So, and again, at this point, we'd already been in town for about an hour, and the museum had some interesting ones. You know, like just like many of our other museums, there's definitely some interesting exhibits. The first one that was very interesting was the one about culture of Quebec's wrestling and wrestling culture. And so they talked about for the last 100 years and how it was within Canada. But again, there was definitely some other exhibits that talked about Indigenous cultures of Quebec, encounters that have kind of shaped Quebec. So when, you know, the Indigenous people were already in Quebec and then some Europeans landed, how that kind of shifted it. Definitely an eye-opening one for the kids, especially to see a different Indigenous culture than ours. Definitely lots of similarities, but something different. But also the presentation itself was, you know, the standards were amazing as well, much like ours, but this one was kind of on a bigger scale. And so they had stuff with judo, again with wrestling, again, various other ones. And we were probably in there for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, so and walk around. It was all in French. So for them to, there was English side, but for the most part, again, it's focusing on their French. And by this point, as I was kind of talking yesterday, by day 2, day 3, the kids were, you know, they were definitely taking a while to adjust, which was a good thing. You know, the amount of French that was coming at them, the speed, and they couldn't really get away from it other because they were living with their families. And that's what I think, as opposed to the private one, which costs more, having the opportunity to go live with families and hear French and being forced to speak French just enriches the opportunity even more. And you just can't pay for that kind of thing. So yeah, that was kind of neat. What else we got here? some more exhibits, particularly on the indigenous content. And then even other ones where you're kind of looking at Bombardier and how that's kind of affected and changed a lot in Quebec as well. So beautifully done exhibits. And again, this is just really our first full day. After that, we kind of were given about an hour and a half and let the kids kind of explore the lower part of the town. If you've ever been to Quebec City, particularly, there's the higher portion and then the wall city and then underneath. And so we had the opportunity to go to the downtown portion. Sadly, there was a power outage. That said, it was kind of let them kind of browse for a little bit, I guess, all the different shops. You know, nothing like browsing, taking your time, but again, just the ability to kind of visit, you know, a town that's about 450 years old with, you know, cobblestone, et cetera, was quite nice. And it kind of gave them a first taste of what would come for the next 5 days. So, yeah, it was nice. The evening portion, we went to an Érablière, Sugar Shack, and that was about 20 minutes from where we were. And again, although our students, I think, thank you for our friends at AFNO, have an idea what that would kind of look like, especially with the music and the food, etc. You know, actually getting into that culture and that kind of environment, it's amazing. And they showed us their, you know, syrup kind of setup, etc. and so forth. So yeah, and they fed us amounts of food as much as they could possibly take. So even dessert, I think, was pancakes with syrup. That was dessert. Let alone all the other food. Dancing, music. I didn't add a video because it wouldn't fit on there, but size wise, but it was, yeah, amazing. Fiddles, etc. So an amazing experience, especially on day one. Lots of the kids eating and taking it all in. And again, this kind of gave them the opportunity to kind of blend with their friends, talk with them, you know, speak in French, because I kind of asked the other students from Quebec only to talk French to their friends, and only French families too. And so I think my students were kind of not so happy, but again, that's the whole point. You're getting forced to talk French. And so, yeah, they were picking it up rather quickly. So it was quite nice, actually. And these are two, our twins, I guess, the adults who have been working, like I say, this is like their 7th or 8th year, Annie, and the other woman, they do have an interesting kind of position within their district, and it was kind of a unique experience. They actually have built into their jobs that they, about half their days are to help organize all the different things you need to do. And so they go to Boston, I think, the school, and then the one woman who I was staying with, her daughter, thankfully I was allowed to sleep in her daughter's room because her daughter happened to be in Africa because they were going to Morocco at the same time. So their position to, I guess, they put a lot of faith and a lot of belief into traveling around the different parts of the world. And so, yeah, it was kind of an interesting one where they, about a day or day and a half of their whole week was dedicated towards planning trips. So I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. So again, something you guys have definitely seen, they're rolling down and stuff like that. But the kids had a blast out there. Adjusting to temperatures of, you know, -20, I'd say, was kind of interesting for them. But again, that's part of the process of getting into it. So the next day, we headed back into town. We checked out the National Assembly, so they were really good to us about hosting it. Last time I went about 4 or 5 years ago, actually it's probably closer to 8, sadly. They were actually under construction on the bottom part. They've actually opened up the entire bottom in a big mezzanine to host groups like ours. And so that's what you're seeing on the bottom part. And through that process, they kind of went through a session where we learned more about the legislative process. We went through the building, which is actually gorgeous. They weren't completely done the constructions. What you're seeing right now is the red room, and they also have a blue room. The blue room is usually where the legislative process happens in Quebec, but unfortunately it was completely under repair, so they got to actually see the red one, so it was kind of neat. And again, very historic, beautiful place right downtown. And again, kids were I guess the tour guide was really good about engaging the kids in French about some of the processes, what they see. And so, yeah, it was a neat educational experience for sure. Next we have, after that, we just went back downtown, again, walked about 15 minutes down towards the Chateau Frontenac area. This kind of gave them the chance to explore the upper portion of town. You can see some interesting photos there, but children were definitely amusing themselves, especially with shopping. But again, just taking in the sights, the sounds, even beaver tails, etc. So yeah, they were definitely there to have fun. We were also there at Carnival time. And what I kind of learned about the process with Carnival particularly is it's kind of a lot of the events are at nighttime, which didn't really work out for her. And they're also kind of more inclined towards adults with alcoholic beverages and so on site. So we couldn't really do that. But I will say our organizers kind of found ways to kind of go over and above some of the things. So we get into ice castles, we did some sledding and stuff like that. And things that we could have done downtown, we kind of went in different parts of the region and actually did better ones. Again, that local knowledge kind of helps when you're meeting with those people. So yeah. So we walked to the Frontenac, checked out some of the upper parts of the city. The next part, I believe, is where we got the tour guide with or within the actual tour de Frontenac. So we have Lord Frontenac here on our side, and he was able to kind of tour us through it, and the students learned more about how the chateau kind of started out very much more simple, very smaller, and then kind of grew over the last 150, 200 years and built into it. And even the upper picture, the Red Room, I believe hosted Queen Victoria about 4 or 5 times over her times, and then even World War II meetings, etc. So gorgeous, beautiful place, historic to Canada, and again, kids kind of took into it. It was also neat because the way our hosts kind of balanced different occasions, because it was quite cold there, you know, we were talking minus 25, minus 30. So there was times we were outside, and then they would kind of plan smarter ones that would be inside to let the kids kind of warm up at the same time. So bathrooms, etc., much like you would like any kind of event. So but again, gave me, I guess, as a planning to, okay, these are the things I need to consider when they come here. I'll go through a little quicker. I know guys, I'm eating your time. The last portion of this day, we played laser tag, and then we went for poutine, authentic Canadian poutine, I guess. But I think the more special one was actually on the left-hand side. 2 of our students, both sisters, had the chance to actually meet up with their great aunt who lived in Lévis. So they had an opportunity to kind of sit down. They hadn't really seen her for about 4 or 5 years, and so she knew that they were in the area, and she came and ate with them. So again, kind of topped off a nice evening and a family experience on top of that. So yes. What else did we get to? So next day we went to the school. This is the kind of included a morning session there. Our friend Tatu joined us along. You can see in the lower part, they had like a mezzanine area where we kind of met and all the students would meet. It was a neat location. Their high school is a little older than ours, but still interesting. I think it's uniquely placed, and the kids kind of thought this was neat too, because in Quebec, they have like Cégeps, where they have kind of some other schools after high school. It would usually end in grade 11, but right next to it was a facility where they was almost like a trade school and a few other different schools right next to it. So kids and students would still be able to come to that area, but continue their education beyond that. And I was like, okay, there's a little bit of planning involved. The lower one was kind of blew my mind as a teacher or a former teacher and current teacher, I guess, is they share a large room as their office. So they jammed about 30 different offices in together collectively. So it kind of forces them to kind of work together, team plan, etc. Where, you know, most models I've kind of seen out here, a lot of teachers are in their own little realm there. So I thought that was kind of interesting too. Something to think about anyway. What else did we get through? Then I think we went back after this, we bussed back into town and went to the observatoire, one place I'd never been myself. Again, 700 feet above Quebec City. It was kind of a snowy, blustery day, couldn't see the greatness, but you definitely had to view. Sadly, about 20 minutes after we left, it all blew by and it actually opened up, but timing's everything. The one thing I really particularly like this, aside from the views, was because it was a square building, and on either side, or I guess on every wall, that wasn't facing out the windows, they had packed full of history and knowledge and different facts about Quebec. So definitely an educational experience. Little things like how, you know, Quebec makes about 72% of all syrup in the world. And even other ones, as I kind of pointed out when I recommend to friends when they want to go back to anywhere in the province of Quebec. To go, as much as Montreal is very beautiful and very pretty, if you're actually gonna go to pick up French, go to Quebec City. Because again, 93% of anybody who lives in Quebec City speaks French. Whereas it's about 50-50 in Montreal, so beautiful towns, but if you're looking for the more Quebecois kind of experience, Quebec City or La Ville de Quebec is your best bet for sure. Any questions so far before I keep going? No? Enjoying the experience? Because the kids were too. But they were getting tired by this one because they were pretty action-packed days. One of the next ones was the funiculaire. So this is kind of I guess almost like an elevator that kind of takes you down from the top part of the city to the bottom part of the city. It's only about 2 minutes, but it's kind of a must do if you go there for sure. Only costs $5, so it was pretty cheap and affordable, but a unique experience for sure. And again, I think the kids kind of thought it was pretty neat after that because, yeah, you can see up this huge one, and I did tell them you could go up it as well, save yourself some steps if you are going there for sure, but they had some fun for that for sure. What else did we get here? Oh, that gives you a good idea about what it is. Next one. So, last part of the day after that, we were able to go over to Lévis. There is a public ferry service, so our friends paid for us to go over on there. And it gave them an opportunity, because I know our students come from the West Coast, know ferries fairly well, and being on the ocean, but I don't think they had quite ever experienced icy ocean, and what that kind of was. And so going through that particular one, and it was cold, especially on the water, but again, it gave the students a nice perspective about the city and where it's located and how it's located. And then also, you know, as we kind of said, this is where some of the explorers, as they kind of came in through North America, this is where they kind of came through. So it was a beautiful, remarkable experience. It was short because we literally went across there and they came back due to timing. But that said, it gave them enough experience on the water that it kind of gave them that experience. So yeah, definitely fun. Definitely we're gonna hopefully kind of do as well. Next day, and this was our last full day while we were in or in our area of Quebec City, Valcartier. And this is one of these areas that I was saying where our friends, instead of taking us to just these little things that would be in Quebec City for Carnival, they used their local knowledge and said, forget that, we're gonna show you something else. So instead of going to the ice castle that is located downtown, that is probably about, I don't know, 10, 20 feet large and something like that. They took us to Valcartier, which is a kind of a winter area that is used by locals, and there is a combination of ice castle. They also have a sledding mountain, so instead of skiing, it's all for sledding. And then during summertime, they have an indoor water park and so on like that too. So we took them through the ice castle. I believe it's the world's largest ice hotel, really. And it kind of gives you an idea, and they were just amazed, like, oh, this is kind of neat. But it has a full out restaurant completely in ice blocks, beds, seats. What else did we have here? There was definitely some cool, interesting, they had their own little bar in there, non-alcoholic beverages, of course. But they could order their own little mocktails, and kind of have some, you know, have a party in there. And it kind of gave them that experience of what it would be kind of like to do. The unique part that was interesting for me is literally once you were done with your drink, you just go throw it in the garbage and they recycle it and melt it back down and do it again. So it's kind of like green technology almost. But the kids definitely had a blast looking through this one, and it was immense. I even had a built-in sled. I think I might have that somewhere in here. I think Dinesh, if you kind of go to the far side, yeah, there was definitely beds, all sorts of interesting things. People actually sleep in this for a hefty dollar. But again, if you have a nice little ice castle that you can literally slide in, yeah, the kids were definitely into it for a solid half hour, 45 minutes, just looking around. Yeah. After this, and like I said, adjacent to this park, was the sledding park. And so the kids were able to kind of go sledding. The one on the bottom shows you just like the outskirts, but beyond that hill, there was probably about another 15 different slides to choose from, and they were various difficulties, I guess you could say. So again, if you were into black diamond sledding, and really want to get crazy, you could go for it. If you were like me and Alicia and wanted to kind of hang on the, lesser challenging one, we were okay with that too, so that's all right. But the kids definitely were, having fun. This though, I will say it was where the trick got interesting, because in the afternoon is when I received a, email from our organizers that the snow front was coming in. So unfortunately, I didn't get to go play out too much in the snow for this day, because I was too busy trying to figure out what our next steps were, because our flights had gotten canceled. So the kids were happening, but I was still doing stuff in the background. And that's where, but I said this was a blessing in disguise, because this kind of gave us an opportunity to stick around for a little while. So, but I didn't get too many photos. As you can see, these were the student photos, because they were having fun and I was too busy doing adulting. So that's all right. But as I said, our flights got canceled, and what happened was big snowstorm coming through the area, big enough that they actually canceled school in the area. And so that kind of was a blessing, because instead of getting up at 2 in the morning, which we would have to do, this gave us the opportunity to sleep in and then hang out at our twins' house for until about 4 o'clock at night. Then we hopped on the bus and then went to Montreal. Montreal, though, on our way as we're driving to Montreal, again, because of the ice storm, they canceled our next flight. So as we were arriving into Montreal, we were gonna be there for 2 days, which left us a full day to do what we wanted in Montreal. And so, yeah, it was fantastic. And I guess for us, the kids, I wasn't really sure how they react, but they were definitely into kind of just going an extra day. They thought it was kind of a bonus, so, yeah, it was neat. I'll kind of work through this one a little few more. What else we got here? So first thing we did in Montreal, I took them down to Old Montreal. And, if you've ever been to Montreal, it's definitely a historic one as well, old quarter down close to the port city. And so we started off in the Notre Dame Basilica. Again, definitely a huge part of the history of architecture in our area. The kids were actually amazed. I wasn't really sure how they would react. I knew it was kind of warm inside, so again, we go there, but as soon as they came in there, their mouths literally dropped down and like, holy. Wow, and they were just like, this is what a church could kind of be like, and yeah, one kid even said, I'd probably go to church a lot more. This looked like. Hey, right on, man, that's all right. But again, they had a self-guided tour for the kids to kind of go around, so we were in there for about an hour, hour and a half. And then I allowed them about a couple hours to walk around, check out some of the sights and sounds of Montreal. They were very, yeah, I think because one of the previous groups had gone to Montreal from here, and that they already told them, and so they were like, yeah, we want to check out Old Montreal. So they had the opportunity to kind of see, eat, do everything we could kind of do in a couple hours. Again, I didn't really want to keep them too long, because I knew we had a nice early flight the next day, but I wanted to give them as much opportunity to kind of explore that city as much as they could. And we got a beautiful sunshiny day. And again, after about 2.5 hours, we all kind of met back at a bagel shop, because that was the last thing I kind of wanted to make them do was, hey, if you're gonna go to Montreal, you want to do some, Montreal bagels. The location that I chose was kind of lucky in the fact that it was completely enclosed, so they could warm up. Yeah, but the kids definitely had some good times eating all sorts of different flavors, whatever they particularly wanted. So, yeah, the kids were definitely, having some good vibes at this point. So, and if you ever go to Montreal, definitely get some bagels. It's a must. Bring some home. The neat part, because we were right across, our hotel was literally right across from a shopping mall, and quite a few of the ladies wanted to go shopping, but our one young gentleman, it was his birthday, and he, kind of like me, wasn't so much interested in shopping malls. He's like, Mr. McTee, is there any possible way we could go to the Lamborghini dealership, which was literally only about 1 kilometer down the road? I was like, yeah, we can make that happen. So we went down, checked out the Lambo dealership. We got him into a car. It was quite interesting. This is the cheap model. This is why he's allowed into it. It was only about $600,000. But again, we weren't the only ones there who were just kind of lurking around, checking things out. I think these guys kind of put up with a lot of it. But it made his day for sure. It was definitely fun to watch them. Even other ones that were there, like this is the sports model, apparently this is the off-road edition. So I didn't quite realize Lamborghinis made off-road editions.
Come on.
I don't know if you take a $2 million car off-road period, but as you can see, it's got the roof rack, etc., lights, so on. The one on the right-hand side, it was the most expensive. Apparently it was in the dealership's private stock and it's about $18 million.
Whoa.
So it was good to look at, but that's supposed to be everybody.
I can tell.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. But again, it was in something I wasn't really expecting, but it definitely made his day for sure. And other than that, the next day we were able to hop into Montreal, get back, and everything kind of went normal from there as planned. We actually be able to meet up with Andre Michaud because she was actually stopped back there as well. So the kids kind of said hi to their former principal, and Tuck 2 kind of came with us as well. So overall things, I think with the kids, they loved it. They took away a lot of French. And even for ourselves, it definitely gave myself, when these guys come back here and make some ideas about what we can kind of do. So, and I think we can definitely build on this for the next couple of years. So,
Thank you.
no worries.
Thank you. Any questions?
When did the twins come here?
The twins come here in late May, so they arrived the 21st. And we'll be here until about the 28th, so about a week. Yeah, and so I'm busy kind of confirming what we're gonna do with them. They kind of already have a good idea about, well, we're not really next to the capital city, just down the road, but we offer something different, and that's what they're actually looking for. They've gone to those other places, and so, but we, during that kind of the year, we are definitely going to our own local museum. I think I've already booked some kayaking ones. We're definitely looking at going over to Metlakatla Trail. So again, we can get our own ferry ride across the harbor. And a bunch of other ones, again, the cannery will be open at that particular point and walking around. So, Prince Rupert, as you guys know, is a beautiful place and there's lots to do. Even the port facility, has kind of given us one there. They're gonna bring in their boat so the kids can kind of, check out and see what they have to offer. So, yeah, for our Prince Rupert kind of rallies, and it kind of help for those kind of
Maybe
things.
ferry to Kit Kat Light, go to the Loaf of Bread restaurant, that is absolutely
Yeah,
phenomenal.
we'll see what we can fit in. Sadly, as there's lots of things you can do, but you only get about a week. I think we're also gonna go to do some hiking in the local areas as well. I mean, yeah, there's lots of cool spots at that time of year. My hope is just, the weather holds up, but if it doesn't, they're gonna bring rain jacket just like we brought our. stuff.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you guys.
Well,
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. So approval of the minutes of the open board meeting held on February 18th. So for trustee Sancho, seconder. Trustee Meyer, would you care to speak to that? All in favor? Wonderful, so moved. Necessity of the closed meeting and agenda. Wishes of the board, trustee Beal. Motion to approve,
Motion to approve 4.1 through 4.9.
wonderful, seconded, trustee Dalton. Care to speak to that? All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. And then correspondence to the board, 5.1. Trustee Meyer,
I'd like to make a motion to send 5.1.1 to policy.
do I have a seconder for that motion? Trustee Beal, great, would you care to speak to that, trustee? Meyer?
Yeah, it's a good letter and it makes, good points on the naming of the new middle school. And so I know we have a policy on naming, so if we send it to policy, we can make a plan to start that process.
Good, thank you. Would anyone else care to speak to that motion? Trustee Beal?
I actually think that when we come to the point of discussing this, I would like to invite one of our people from the Indigenous, well, not the committee anymore, the council. Maybe would like to join in on some discussion with that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any words further? And there's a motion on the floor. All in favor that this is sent to policy?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you. 5.2, copy to the board, wishes of the board, trustee Meyer.
I'll make a motion to send 5.2.1 and 5.2.2 to receive and file. please.
Seconder to that motion? Trustee Pucci, do you care to speak to that?
No,
Anyone care to speak to that? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you. Superintendent of School report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First item on our agenda is field trips. See, there's not very many. If there's any questions, I will entertain them.
Any questions?
Next. Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Nothing.
Supposed to be louder.
Louder, not
Louder, she said
weirder.
louder. Understood. Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is, calendars. And Madam Pond, you have any comments on the calendars? You did a lot of work on them.
I don't know, I think, they're ready for approval, we're just waiting on, and we'll probably need to amend if the union would like to move any of our Pro D days. But we did,
Yep, questions? I have trustee Beal. Sorry, I have trustee Meyer, then trustee Beal.
I'm just wondering, is
And
this
then
for,
trustee Dalton?
as we're looking at the difference between the 2-week and the 1-week spring break, and is that a decision that we need to make?
No.
No, it's not. This is just for information
Yeah.
purposes tonight. Okay.
Trustee Beal?
My question's actually around the spring break. When is the senior staff going to be meeting with the union to propose the 2-week spring break? I mean, because like, why are we adopting a calendar tonight?
They're not
We're not.
adopting, we're just. for
Okay, I thought
information.
I heard her say because we're not at that stage.
Yes.
Is the user able to speak to that?
Of course. but I told you.
Hi, yeah, the union is doing their AGM on March 13th. They are going to talk about it, and then I believe we have a letter of understanding in place already for a 2-week spring break that we will sign. So there's been one in place. We're just, me and Kyla are just slowly working that one out. Yeah, new to me, and so just looking at that. If that answers the question, is there any?
I just have a further question because, excuse me, past practice is that the senior management give us options with in regards to the spring break. Option one is we stick with status quo from former years, which is a 1 week, or we go into the 2 weeks. So it's never been a given that students get the 2 weeks. It's decided amongst the board members in the option process. So
Okay.
I just make sure that we're all aware of that. We've had a lot of controversy over that spring break for many years, so I just want us to be transparent that we're just not moving into a 2-week spring break when we've only ever had a 1 week. Not that we're gonna change that, but it's better to be. No, for many years it was always.
Wait, but now we currently have had 2 weeks for quite a few years, right?
But we make
Yes.
that option
Yes,
available to the board.
yes. Thank you for that. Trustee, oh, please.
if I could speak, Madam Chair, and that's why there are the 2-week and the 1-week option. So I think we would hope that the board would make a motion to move forward with a 2-week or a 1-week option, and because we do have to submit our calendar.
That's
So
why I
it is-
asked, that's why I asked
Tonight
the
is
question,
understanding?
is we need
That's
to
why
make a
it's in here,
decision
yeah.
tonight, like. This.
Sorry, I have a speakers list.
Oh.
So I first have trustee Dalton and then, sorry, and we'll finish with Janet. I don't know that that question's been answered. Then I have trustee Dalton and then I have trustee Meyer. So I think there's a question outstanding as to what
Yes,
is
that's why
actually
I'm
happening
asking the
tonight.
question is, there has to be a decision. That's why I asked.
And can I ask, just for clarity, in the past, did we not hear first from our stakeholders before a decision was made?
Yes, we did.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I can just, if Asia, meets every week with the union and liaison. And Asia, I wonder if you could, inform the group, the board is, seeking the information whether they need to approve this tonight. But I think you said that this is going to the PUDTU for ratification on Thursday. This week.
Yeah. I mean, if the board approves it tonight, then if the union comes back with changes, we can always meet again and then do an amendment to it as well. That's my understanding. I believe that was kind of the past practice. I'm not quite sure. Usually it came here and then the union meets and then, but this is new to me again, so correct me if anybody else knows more. That's what me and the union had talked about, is that we are doing this meeting now, and I told them that the calendars would be proposed here, and that if any changes need to be made, we can amend it. But maybe Ms. Pond might have more clarification if she's.
Right, so I'm gonna go with the speakers list and then we'll come back. Wonderful. Trustee Dalton?
Same thing. Are we voting on a week, 1 week or 2 weeks? And the comment that I would like to make is that after attending meeting for the last couple of months, that's been the question that has been passed on to me. And everyone that has spoken to me that was the meeting said, we would like you to, we want 2 weeks. My question then becomes, have we asked all the teachers what they want? Has it been a question? Have we taken a survey for the teachers?
I will
Say
give
you
that,
want a
I'll
week,
give that to
not you.
Right,
I will give that.
Madam Chair, the PRDTU under collective bargaining, the PRDTU are the spokespeople for the members. And they communicate to us the wishes of their members.
Well, I'm very grateful for that, however. that
Can I
doesn't
just
work.
clarify what, before you guys do this, like,
No, that's okay, I just want to say my word, and you can have the floor.
We'll come back after.
Yes, I do understand that process, but I still realize there's still some voices that are not heard, so. That's all I wanted to say. Are we gonna have the pleasure of voting on that?
Yes, Madam Chair,
Is it gonna be brought back to the board?
well, generally, my understanding was that you're approving a calendar tonight. And I'm asking for you to consider that 2 week is what we use to recruit teachers. 2 week is what our members have told me for many years, that that's what attracts them to come here. It gives them that length of time to take a break, because it does take 2 days to drive out of here. And even flying takes a day with only one flight a day. And so, the wishes of the head office staff are a 2 week break, spring break, a 2 week break helps us in recruitment. And we believe is what our members want.
That is what I was told.
Yeah, now the
So-
calendar can be, you can approve the calendar, but we can change a day or two in the act. It says that we can change, like if we have a Pro D day that we need to move, it does not need to come back to you.
Okay.
One day isn't gonna, right, 1 or 2 days can be changed without bringing it back to you for approval.
That still doesn't answer whether it's gonna be, I understand, but is it gonna be a 1 week or 2 week, or is it gonna vacillate every year?
No.
Well, in the calendars we presented to you, your wishes, if you wish to take these calendars apart, we've given them to you as, and the recommendation that it's a 2 week spring break every year for the next 3 years. Your choice can be to change that. That's up to you as a board.
Well, I don't
Are
see
you-
where every year is,
Okay.
I just see just 1 week in some places and
Right, so I will, I wanna honor the speakers list, but I will also share how this works, is this page is 2026 with 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Then the opposite page is 2026 with 1 week. Then you flip, this is 2027 with 2 weeks, and then 2027 with 1 week.
Yeah.
And then this is 2028 with 2 weeks, and this is 2028 with 1 week. Wonderful. I see you, trustee Sanchez. I have trustee Meyer, then trustee Sanchez, and trustee Beal.
I'm sorry, I'm confused, because the very first question I asked is if we needed to vote on it, and everybody said no.
Right.
So sorry, I thought that's what we were doing. So I'm gonna let everybody else speak, because I'm gonna make the motion, so I'm gonna let everybody else speak first, go ahead.
Trustee Sanchez.
I've been here for so many years. And the problem is, we have a hard time getting teachers here. And I think that 2 weeks does give, people say, oh my goodness, we can get 2 weeks. And I think it's a good thing to offer because other schools or districts do not give that type of thing. And for me, the teacher, especially during that time, I would prefer the 2 weeks. So that's where I'm going. Thank you.
Trustee Beal.
I just, for clarification purposes, I'm a very transparent person and I don't like having this in front of me without the stakeholders' knowledge of this. It's very upsetting to me, Andrew, when I look at this and that, we're not respecting IUOE, who actually suffers hardship because of us giving the 2 weeks. I've spoken over this time and time again. I realize it's hard to recruit staff in this area. And if the process is a process, we adopt a 2-week calendar, that's one thing. But at least we should let other people have voices. The Indigenous people have spoken in the past over this as well. Because we've been divided as a board over this issue. And so far as children in our area have issues with making it to school on time, getting food, the proper programs. And so I'm not dismissing the 2 weeks, but I'm saying I think we should have started the process a bit early before we're here tonight, just so we could hear what other stakeholders had to say. That's straight out. They should have had a say before we are put in a position tonight to adopt a calendar for 2 weeks. So that's how I feel.
So I just have a question for clarity, and I just want, and the only reason I'm asking is to refresh my memory. When we voted on this the last time, had this not gone to all the partner groups prior, and then we heard their input was shared with us at the board table before a decision was made on the calendar? Just if anyone can remember.
Past practices, yes.
Thank you.
I don't think since Andrew's been the superintendent, I might have not, I might have missed it. I apologize for that. But past practices, we involve our stakeholders. We allow them to have an input into, even if, just for them to have a say. It's just, in all fairness, they should have a say, even if we adopt 2 weeks.
Thank you. Trustee Meyer.
Yeah, I think the last time we did it was 3 years ago, because I think we always do it on a 3-year cycle, right? And I believe that we had asked for input, like, I think it was like a Survey Monkey or something that went out to all of the partner groups, and then we got those results.
Thank you.
I think that's what happened.
So
Yes.
I have a question. Can this be decided on at the next meeting?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. So wishes of, sorry, trustee Pucci, did you care to add anything?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd be seeking direction then from the board. If you want me to take this to IEC, you're directing me to take it to IEC. We take it to liaison with IOUE and with PRDTU. We can survey our staff if so directed.
Wishes of the board. I think those are 3 completely different things.
Yeah, they
So I would like my wishes are that those are separate.
I'd like to motion that the all 3 partner groups should be provided the opportunity to respond to the calendar. That's, I mean, a basic letter. out of respect to the committee.
Sorry, I'm going to just ask a question of
Point of procedure.
yes, Ms. Lehu, if you could advise us of a date that this calendar needs to be complete?
Okay.
You might not be able to. It needs to go to the ministry March 31st.
Right.
So it just means we're late.
And is that okay?
I think that would be okay, we'll be.
Trustee Meyer?
Another option would be just approving a 1 year with the intent of next year that we do what we just talked about. Because we don't have, it's only 2 weeks until we have to have it submitted. I don't know.
So
what
we
people's
currently
thoughts
have,
are.
you've made a motion,
I'll
correct?
remove my motion,
Thank you.
but I expect, following through next year that we do this in the proper procedures, that we allow stakeholders to have input on the calendar. And we can vote on a week or 2 weeks at this meeting, but that's my,
So I would ask, are you making a motion, trustee Meyer?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to do a 2-week spring break for the 2025-26 season, 1 year only.
Seconded, trustee Dalton, would you care to speak to that?
I think we've had a discussion.
Does that feel complete for everyone? Discussion wise? No one else need, all right, so we have a motion on the floor to approve a 2-week spring break for 1 year only, the 2020. What year is it? 2025, 2026 year. All in favor? Great, so moved. Would you like to be noted? Anyone like to be noted as opposed?
Yes, Michael Pucci.
Thank you, everyone.
Madam Chair, enrollment, please turn to page 30 and I call on Sally Pond to elucidate us on the enrollment thing.
Great. Thank you. Page 30 has our most recent enrollment graph. And so you can see we're really steady this year, which is a good thing. Currently, or as of February 28th, our student count was 1,809 students. 62% or 1,114 students of Indigenous descent. Anybody have any questions about that?
Thank you, Ms. Pond. Up to 6.1.4 is upcoming projects, learning or other. There's been beaucoup the things going on in our schools to help Mike out with the French presentation. For example, the BC Literacy Council has approved Allison Smith's literacy project proposal aimed at enhancing literacy skills for high school life skills students at CHSS using high interest books and hands-on activities. She hopes to foster a love for reading and writing. Amazing group of CHSS students spent the past month planning for Black History Month, and I talked to the principal this morning. She said it was a great success. Students cooked for 7 hours. I can't pronounce the food that they made, but everybody enjoyed it. They also did kind of like a book visits and almost a cultural tour of different groups, and very well received. Miss Layton, the food sovereignty mentor, was able to go olefin fishing last week and distribute her catch to students and families. Miss Lane's class will be heading out with the team from the Indigenous Education Department this week. Members from the Prince Rupert Lions Club came to the school on Pink Shirt Day to cook pancakes for Charles Hayes. Members, Conrad staff participate in a secret staff spirit days. Last few weeks, students were entertained on the days they noticed that staff were up to something. Conrad School held a basketball celebration pizza party for the conclusion of the season. And they're going to be having a game this Friday between the staff and the students. Grade 4 and 5 students at Lahane went on a ski trip to Shames Mountain. They held a luncheon for grade 4 or 5 basketball students, and staff versus student ball game occurred there as well. They had a student and family pancake breakfast. Rampage players came to read with the students. And the divisions 1 to 4 hosted a book tasting cafe. Very unique opportunity and fun to bring families in to engage with their children while sampling some of their new books. Early childhood and childcare. The early years fair at Roosevelt School on Saturday, March 8th was an enormous success. 130 children attended. That's incredible. In total, with parents and siblings, 250 people attended. So Roosevelt Park Community School now has a fully licensed before and after school care program opening in September 2025. 6 families have already registered their children for the program, and after spring break, we're looking forward to the Ready, Set, Learn sessions at each of the elementary schools, as well as an evening session for families that can attend during the school times, an evening session at the Family Connect Center, the FCC. And that is the end of my report, Madam Chair. There's lots going on in our schools, and of course, this is a very short month with us ending this Friday. But I encourage you all to get to your schools and have a look at the great things going on.
Thank you. Any questions for Superintendent Samuel? Thank you very much for your report. Secretary Treasurer report.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you bet.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. As the February 2025 Statements of Operations report was included on page 31st. As we can see, total revenues for the period at the end of February were $17.8 million, which were $295,000 higher than the budget of 17.5. Expenses, we see total expenses for the period ended in February of $12.886 million, which are higher by $277,000. As I have been reporting in the previous months, the reason of that negative variance comes mainly from other professional expenses. And as I also mentioned, seems to me that the preliminary budget did not show the current needs of the district. So that is the reason we see that negative variance. Then under employee benefits, what we see at the end of February is total expenses of $3.1 million compared to preliminary budget of $2.9 million. Therefore, we have a negative variance of around $178,000. This is a new item that we see in our financial statements. And as I mentioned to the finance and building committee members, in February, we have to pay, and let me just confirm the amount. I have it here. $157,554 coming from an assessment from Canada Revenue Agency because basically the district didn't deduct nor paid EI and CPP contributions for that amount. Again, $157,554. We already paid that amount to the Canada Revenue Agency. And the reason also to pay in February is to hopefully to avoid penalties and interests as per the letter that we received from them. Then at the bottom, the net result at the end of February, we have a deficit of $102,863, which is a negative variance when compared to budget by $92,677. I will stop here and see if there is any questions about it.
Well, Trustee Pucci.
I'm just wondering, I can appreciate the challenges and I'm just wondering in relation to these negative variances, the losses we're incurring compared to budget, how significant are they compared to our savings to our reserves? Does $100,000 represent single digit percentage to our reserves, or does it represent double digit amounts to our reserve?
Thank you for the question. Actually, another item that we have in our agenda for today is to review the amended annual budget. So during that presentation, I
Perfect,
will
thank you.
talk about the
Yeah,
reserves.
I think it's important for the public to understand where our savings are, and again, some things can be potentially absorbed, but what it really means overall to long-term planning. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you, Trustee Pucci. I'm not seeing any other questions.
Okay, so now I will move to point 7.2, which is about the 2024-25 amended annual budget, which starts in page 33. So from page 33 to page 51. That is copy of the report that will be submitted before the Ministry of Education and Childcare. The deadline is March 28th. So I'm happy to report that I believe we are in pretty good shape to file that even way before the deadline. The report that was provided last Friday had just a typo on one of the schedules. And I should have it in front of me. Sorry for that.
I have a question. Enrique, are you fine to answer a question?
It's actually not a question.
Oh, great.
I'd
A
just
statement.
like to
Trustee
make-
Beal?
I'd just like to make a motion that the amended annual budget be read 3 times and adopted tonight.
Thank you. Seconder to that motion? Trustee Meyer, all in favor? Wonderful. So approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick question before he goes into
Yes.
it. So I have a copy of the amended budget from March 11th. And then the one that was in our package is from March 7th. Are there any differences? Should I be looking at
Yes.
one over the other?
Yes.
The new one,
Here,
the March
the new
11th.
one.
Okay.
About
The-
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, I was about to mention that it's just one page is under the schedule 1,
Statement 1.
which I believe is page 7. Sorry.
Brittany is welcome to speak to that, Enrique.
Yeah, thank you. I have it now. Okay.
Yeah, so it was just on schedule 1, page 5. It was just a typo in the beginning of the year balance for the capital fund. So that was just the one number that changed.
Oh, okay.
And it's page 39 in this report in the board package. So page
Page
30.
5 of the standalone.
Yes.
Perfect.
On page 39.
Thank you so much. Back to you.
Okay. Thank you. So so what I will do is I will share my screen to go over the amended budget. It is here. Sure. Mm. I believe you can see my screen now.
Yes, you bet.
Perfect. Okay. So first of all, I would like to thank Brittany Verissimo, our Director of Finance, because we have had long days, trying to put together this information. So I thank for that. And Brittany will also help me during this presentation. So feel free, Brittany, to share your comments when needed. Okay, so this is the agenda for tonight. So it's strategic planning priorities, budget timelines, funds categories, reserves available, 24-25 amended budget comparison, special purpose funds, and capital funds. And with that, I will pass that to Mr. Andrew.
So just a reminder that everything we do, of course, goes back to our strategic plan, your strategic plan. And although it is a living document and this has been, what, 2 years, 2 full years, it is probably time to have a look at it. But in the meantime, we're still planning our priorities as the bureaucracy here for equity, which is literacy and numeracy. And of course, those are our 2 pillars that we have to close the gap. We also have truth and reconciliation, which we have great work being done by the Indigenous Education Department. And Lori Berger in particular is doing a lot of work on that with us. And then we have mental health literacy, which is not only your priority, but also a Ministry of Education priority. Because we know that many of our students in our district come from a variety of trauma, intergenerational trauma, etc. And we need to address those issues, which frees them to then be much better at learning because they have some help. Thank you, Enrique.
Thank you. So with that, Brittany.
So this is the budget timeline slide that you're very familiar with. I'm just gonna go over a few reminders today. So that top portion is the timeline for the current year 24-25 amended budget. The bottom portion is for next year's 25-26 preliminary budget. And today we're going over the 24-25 amended budget, which is the top portion. So again, just as a reminder, usually the amended budget is due on February 28th. However, due to the ministry's delay in their funding announcement this year, the amended budget and bylaw are due to the ministry by March 28th this year. And I'll pass it back to you, Enrique.
Thank you. Okay. So I would like to start by just talking about the different funds that we have at the school district. And so giving you a little bit of context here. So we have 3 funds. The first one is the operating fund, which is designed to cover expenses related to the instruction, the school and district administration, operations, maintenance, and transportation. So it's basically the daily expenses, and we get, in order to cover those expenses, we get what they call the general operating grant. So for that fund, we basically can use that grant for it's a non-restrictive grant, so we can use as needed. Then we have the special purpose fund, and that is money that has a specific goal, and there are specific guidelines to use that money. We cannot move money from one fund to another one without previous approval from the ministry, and as far as I know, it's pretty hard to get those approvals. But anyways, those are the special purpose funds that, and again, we have to report. We need to provide different information to the ministry, and then we have the last fund, which is the capital fund. The capital fund is funds received for the purpose of acquiring land, buildings, and major equipment. So I know that many of you are familiar with these funds, but I believe that it's important to just remind the public about the different pockets of money that the school district has. Okay. And then also trying to provide some context here and actually following up in the questions that Trustee Pucci was asking earlier. Here is what the, I would say, financial situation, or part of the financial situation of the school district is. And it's something called, in our audited financial statements, you can find more information about that in something called accumulated results, which is basically the accumulated result from previous fiscal years. Basically, there is a pocket that if you have a surplus, what is the meaning of surplus? Surplus is when your revenues are higher than your expenses, you have a surplus. However, when your expenses are higher than your revenues, you ended up with a deficit. So here's the magic about, and you are way more familiar than me in this situation. Basically, we as a team, we need to find ways to ensure that our budget balances at the end of the year. Or sometimes there are specific situations that is not possible, and you know that better than I, right? But anyway, so what happens is, during the years when you have surpluses, it's kind of a pocket that you start saving money, right? You start putting that surpluses in a pocket, and when you have those special situations where you are in a deficit, then you have that pocket. But you have to be careful, and you have to understand how much money you have available in that we call it contingency reserve. There are different reserves in the school district. Some of them are restrictive, but this is the most important one for our purposes right now, is to understand what was the situation, or what is the situation of the school district as of today. And before I provide information as of today, I will provide information, some history about this reserve. So the balance of the unrestricted operating surplus at the end of June 30, 2023 was $237,530. It means that during 100 years that the school district has been in operations, at the end of the day, at the end of June 30th, 2023, the surplus was $237,530. That is reality according to the audited financial statements. Now, last year was a different year for the school district, and again, you will know way better than the history behind, but here is some information I have. Last year, the school district received a reimbursement for middle school expenses that happened in previous years. And that amount, that reimbursement, was for $1,055,000. But also, on top of that, the school district ended up with a surplus for $179,633. So for that specific year, the total surplus that the school district ended up having or generating was 1.2 million, plus the 237,530 that we have at the end of the previous year, make a total balance or ending balance as of June 30th, 2024 of 1,472,163. So that is, at the end of the day, I would say, money available for the school district to offset any deficits that we may have this year. So if we are going back to the question that Trustee Pucci was asking earlier, so if we receive this assessment for $157,000, it's a little bit more than 10%. Okay. So I will stop here just to see if any of our trustees have any questions so far.
I have Trustee Pucci and then myself.
Thank you very much. That is exactly the explanation I was hoping for, Enrique. Chair, may I ask Superintendent just to restate what's been said before, is that any overages in the construction of the new school is charged against the district, and our only source of that overage fund would be these reserves as well? Am I correct in that statement, Superintendent?
You are correct, Trustee Pucci. Any overage on this school is the responsibility of this board.
All right. And those funds legitimately, our only source would be what we're seeing here right now.
Correct.
I mean, could be other possible sources of revenues or money, like what?
But as of today,
Exactly.
that's why it's important for, I think, the community to understand that the reserves, although look robust, are really tight when we start talking about 15% in 1 year that needs to be charged back. Thank you.
Exactly.
My question just is, and I could be remembering wrong, I thought last year when we amended the budget, we used some of this 1.055 million to do a balancing of the amended budget last year. Is how I remember, but I could be mistaken and I could go back and look through that. I then have Trustee Beal, but I would ask for if anyone else remembers.
I wanted to speak to that because I remember the same thing, that this money actually does not exist. I mean, this is what we heard last year, that money that we received was supplies, and when we went into supplies, that money actually went back into previous budgets that we have drawn it from. So Brittany, I'd like an explanation because I'm getting two different takes on this now, because I don't think we have that in reserves. I'm pretty positive we don't.
No, I can speak to it. So I actually have the financials in front of me. So it is shown as our unrestricted. It went to the unrestricted last year.
So, sorry, I'm speaking, and I'm sorry if someone else wants to speak. So then is that what the decision was when we looked at mod, choice A, B, C, or D, and that's where it was into the unrestricted and it's at?
Oh, I don't remember the exact
Okay.
choices, sorry.
Thanks. I will go.
I think
And I can look through my own notes.
I got my notes at home.
I think if you agree, I can't, even though I was not there, I think I know what could happen. And what happened is, for what I have reviewing, is last year, and we will see actually one note here in the information I will present today. But basically what happens is the school district received this reimbursement of 1.055 million. And the question was, okay, where are we going to recognize that amount, that reimbursement? And for some reason, I think was the ministry and the auditor said, you need to recognize that in your expenses but because it's a recovery, basically, needs to be recorded into negative, in a negative. Instead of increasing your expenses, we'll need to decrease your expenses because it's a reimbursement. And maybe that was the understanding at that moment. Oh, well, now we have used that money, the money is gone. The thing is, we need to see the whole picture. And the whole picture is, let's say that the total budget was, I will say an amount, just a example, $28 million. But then because you receive $1 million in reimbursement, then you ended up spending just $27 million. And remember when I was talking about what is a surplus and a deficit? So what happened at the end of the day, my belief is that you ended up having lower expenses. Then that $1 million that you already use, the effect is you ended up having a surplus. So that is what these amounts that are showing here, the 1.055 and the 179, where I got that information from is the audited financial statements. So what I'm saying is I'm 100% sure that what I'm presenting here is correct. Now, the other thing that I also realized is that last year when the amended budget was presented, the estimation, the forecast was that I believe was going to be around 600,000 surplus. And Brittany, maybe you can correct me that. But regardless that is the effect of that $1 million. Yes, you used it last year. Yeah, because you received the money and then you basically decrease your expenses. But the effect in the whole equation is you ended up having this surplus. That surplus is that piggy bank that I am talking about. So because you ended up with a $1 million surplus, you cannot use it that year, or you didn't use it. So what happens is that money is transferred to the bigger pocket, which was the beginning balance was $237,000, and now it's added to that pocket. That is the reason at the end of the fiscal year last year you had 1.4 million. So hopefully that can help this. And Brittany, please help me here if
I
if
have
needed.
Brittany and then trustee Beal. I was just gonna thank you for helping with the explanation, Enrique. I can confirm that what he is saying is correct, so it was per the auditors and the ministry's response to it and how we should record it in our financials. So like Enrique explained, what they suggested was we record the reimbursement in our operating expenses, even though it's for prior years, instead of restating our prior year statements. Instead, they requested for us to record it in the current year.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And when referring, sorry, just another note, when referring to the prior year financials too, that's why you'll see a negative amount in our services expenses. So usually be a positive number for expenses, but it's showing as a negative, and that's due to the reimbursement.
I understand, he did explain it, because last year we obviously reduced our expenses by a certain amount to bring us to this year, because last year we weren't talking the million something from the recovery. We were talking like maybe 600,000 at some point, so now I understand because of the reduction, why we're in.
Wonderful explanation.
Yes, thank you both.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions on this side? Back to you, Enrique.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And most importantly, doesn't mean, oh, suddenly we found 1.4 million. Let's go. No, please don't. That is not the idea. Remember, this is a contingency, and there is a policy actually. And Brittany, please help me here. The policy says that there's a recommendation from, I believe,
Through the 4%.
yeah, of our operating budget. So we're talking about if the operating budget, and we will see that later in this presentation, our operating budget, I believe, is around let's say $27 million. So if we're talking about 27, 27 million, and we're talking about 2%. just 2% is $540,000. So if we're talking about 4%, we're talking about 1,080,000. So really, we don't have a lot of
And
margin.
that's in a standard year where we wouldn't have this potential charge of an overage with a school build.
Exactly. So, okay, I will move to the next slide, but for sure there is a lot of information or more to do about this. So right now here I'm showing 2024, 2025 surplus or deficiency. So it's what we are going to talk about later in this presentation. So here is a summary that shows the 2023, 2024 actuals, the 2024-25 preliminary budget, and then the last column shows the amended budget. This information was presented to the Finance and Building Committee last week. So I will go over the big, the most important items, if you don't mind. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. So this part is also a little bit confusing, I will say. And the reason I'm saying that is because what I have learned so far is the preliminary grant that was approved by the ministry compared to the final, the recalculated grant, at the end of the day, we received $50,000 less than those two grants. However, what we will see here, because the preliminary budget follows different assumptions and different timing, here what we will see is that actually, based on the numbers that were calculated earlier last year, the general operating grant was 26.7 million, but now, based on the recalculation, we get 27.1 million. That includes around $100,000 coming from childcare. I don't know if you really want to go on every single piece of how these 27 or 26 are calculated, but it's important for me just to say we're talking about two different things sometimes, because we're talking about the grant that was pre-approved by the ministry and the recalculated grant. Those two pieces, at the end of the day, we receive as around $55,000 reduction. Okay, but when you look at what we budgeted in the past, was actually lower than what we expected. That is basically what I would like to share with you about that. At the end of the day, we have 29 million point six as a total revenue, which is higher than the 29.2 shown under the preliminary budget. So then you will say, oh, well, Enrique, so you're talking about $400,000 more in revenues. So keep talking. Well, just careful with what you wish, right? What I have been doing, working with the team, and I'm sorry for joking on this, but what I have been doing with the team is paying closer attention to the assumptions that we're using when we are preparing budgets or amended budgets. And that is takes time. But I think right now, thanks to thanks to the help of different team members, I feel confident that we are going in the right way, but I'm not still there, right? As you can imagine. Anyways, what you will see here is that, so teachers, for example, you are showing 10.9 million when the preliminary budget was showing 11 million. What does that mean? Are you planning to do changes? No. The only thing that we're doing is looking at the assumptions that we're using and try to be more accurate. But Same thing happens with the principal and vice principals. Same thing. Hey, you know what? The amended budget is showing 2.2 million, but the preliminary budget was showing 2.4. What's happening? It's just looking closer to the numbers and try to project accordingly. Education assistance keeps showing the same amount. Support staff, same approach. Oh, sorry. Same approach, which is looking into the numbers and projecting accordingly. Now, other professionals, as I have been talking in previous months, every time we look at the actual spending compared to the budget, since I started working here, which was November, I see that trend that is always over budget, over budget, over budget. So again, as I have said before, is the reason is the assumption that were used at that time were not considering the current needs of the school district. So that is the reason now I am adjusting that budget based on the current needs of the school district. And then substitutes we're leaving the same amount as the preliminary budget. So this is a little bit tricky though, because then if we look, and I will be totally transparent on this, is a way, if we are looking at these numbers, hey, what is happening with other professionals? It's basically you are increasing by $500,000 that, well, it's a little bit tricky because if you pay attention, for example, in principals and vice principals, suddenly we have this reduction. And as I said before, what we have been looking is looking closer to the assumptions and calculate accordingly. So in some cases, and I have to say that Mr. Andrew has been he has been looking in different ways to improve our financial performance. And it's when sometimes he finds a way that, you know what, let's maximize resources. So we have an employee that can help us in different areas. For accounting purposes, we call it allocate salaries accordingly. So sometimes it's not, again, it's maybe not reduction. It's not that suddenly we're going to fire 3 people. No, it's not that. It's the reallocation of resources and recognize that accordingly. So again, sometimes you cannot see directly those compare like easy math, because sometimes it's not like that. But anyways, when we look at this line, it's like, yeah, we have increase of around $500,000, but we have some savings or reclassifications on other lines. So I will stop here just to see if there is any question. At the end of the day, salaries, according to this amended budget, I expect to be around 21 million compared to the 20.9 million in preliminary budget. So please let me know if you have any questions so far.
I think that his explanations on the budgets,
Wonderful.
Perfect.
Your explanation is answering our questions.
Perfect. That's lovely. So now employee benefits. As you can see, I am showing a significant increase in this section. So it goes from 4.8 to 5.2. And same thing, I will be as clear as possible. This one is challenging because we have different pockets, we have different benefits in different categories, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of work that I still need to do regarding this area. But something that I am doing in this category is I am ensuring to include this assessment issued by CRA for around $157,000. So part of that increase is because I'm trying to protect that expense that I know that we already incur, we already paid, and we already include in the February financial statements. So the last category is services and supplies. Really is an immaterial increase, but it's pretty much on target. So total expenses, according to this amended budget, is going to be 30,135,136 compared to the 29,540,456. So bottom line, long story short, is the net sorry, I'm showing as a net revenue. Really, I should call it a surplus or deficiency. The deficiency is going to go from 265,891 to 455,266. And the majority of the reason of that variance, the majority of that is the assessment issued by the Canada Revenue Agency. So I will stop here just to see if there is any question, if it's clear.
Thank you. Thank you, Enrique, and Brittany has a comment.
Thanks, Enrique. I just wanted to add, just to share with everyone too, that it seems to be, province-wide, I'd say, for school districts to see an increase in their employee benefits for this amended budget. So just so everyone's aware, it's a common concern in most school districts right now, just because of the increase in premium costs.
Any questions?
No, I'd like to make a motion to take the bylaw. Unless he's got other things he wants to share, because we're gonna have to call an extension for a meeting.
And our, sorry, the comment was that we will have to extend the meeting, and there's been a motion to approve the amended budget. However, I would ask, is there other items that you want to share with the board before we move on that motion?
Let me just go. I think this one is important. I will not provide a lot of details, but just a summary. So we were talking about a surplus at the end of last fiscal year of 1.4. So if I am projecting a deficit of 455,000, the assumption would be that at the end of this fiscal year, we ended up with a surplus of around $1 million.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor to approve the amended, oh, sorry, please go ahead.
Okay, here, Brittany, why don't you just go super quick, just, or you know what, or let me try to do this, and please let me know if that is enough for go ahead to approve the amended budget.
Great, and before we move, I see trustee Pucci.
And so, yeah, I'm not trying to hold them here, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but so as the end of 24-25, we sit at approximately $1 million. The school doesn't get completed for 2 more years.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
so just so that again, the public is that if we have similar situations going forward, or again, however, it 15% or 10% really does make a big difference to
Yes.
what being protected against the school. Yeah,
Exactly.
thank you.
So here's the mix
Thank you.
where we need to work together to find ways to hopefully balance budget going forward.
100%.
And just for clarity, trustee Samuel let us know 2.5 years.
Converted to trustee.
Trustee Meyer,
Better hours.
On 7 days.
trustee Meyer.
I just wanted to, just along trustee Pucci's thinking as well, that, the 455,000 minus the 157,000 that we had to repay for the CRA, that money, the rest of that money that will be short, will have to make up in years to come, because that money is not a one-time deficit, so.
Sorry, but the 157 is included in that number.
Yeah,
right?
that's why I said
Right.
minus that, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No,
Enrique, I can, go over this really quickly if you'd like.
Yep, please.
So yeah, so this is just a special purpose slide, big overview of our special purpose funds, and then just comparing the preliminary budget to the amended budget. I was gonna go in a little bit more detail, but I'll just make it really short. So there's a couple new ones there. You can see the health career dual credit expansion. So this was actually funding we received last year, but just due to the timing of the budget preparation, it wasn't included in the preliminary budget, so it's included now. That arrays slash PSSG for 81,000. That is funding we received for our Safe Schools outreach program. And the big one that you'll see that's new funding received this year is literacy supports and learning disabilities professional learning grant. So that's 247,000. So again, this is new funding received from the ministry this year, and it's funding to support professional learning for teachers and support staff, as well as support in providing literacy information and resources for parents and caregivers. And I think that's the big ones. And then actually I'll just mention too, so you'll notice on the bottom, But I subtracted the 151,000 received from reaching home. And that was just because we included on the top portion for comparison purposes, but if you're comparing this to the actual budget file, Schedule 3A, it's gonna show that 6.386 million. And that's just because, that funding was actually received in the prior year, but it was funding to be used in the current year.
Any questions on this? Not seeing any, thank you.
Perfect. So,
Then-
so again, just a super quick reminder, the money that we have received for this year for a special purpose funds is total is 6.537. That is the money that we received for this year without considering any carry forwards. And with that, honestly, I think it's yeah, this one probably is not relevant. So thank you so much for
Thank you so much. So much. So we have a motion on the floor to approve the amended budget. Seconder to that motion, trustee Meyer, and all in favor?
Aye.
So we need to read the bylaw.
Do you want to read it?
Yes.
Christie, you're the chair.
I'm standing so backwards, I'm sorry. It's too confusing. I'll go place it. Are we ready?
One to stop the share.
Oh, yes, we can stop the share, yes?
yeah, sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Oh, just asking.
A bylaw of the Board of Education of School District number 52 Prince Rupert called the board to adopt the amended annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2024-2025 pursuant to section 113 of the School Act, RSBC 1996 C 412 as amended from time to time called the Act. Number one, the board has compiled with the provisions of the Act ministerial orders and Ministry of Education and Child Care policies respecting the amended annual budget adopted by this bylaw. Two, this bylaw may be cited as school district number 52 Prince Rupert amended annual budget bylaw for fiscal year 2024-2025. Three, the attached statement 2 showing the estimated revenue and expenses for the 2024-2025 fiscal year and the total budget bylaw amount of 38,317,176 for the 2024-2025 fiscal year was prepared in accordance with the Act. And 4, statement 2, 4, and schedules 1 to 4 are adopted as the amended annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2024-2025. Read a first time the 11th day of March 2025.
Seconded, trustee Beal, and all in favor? Thank you.
And then read a second time the 11th day of March 2025.
Seconder, trustee Dalton, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And then read a third time passed and adopted the 11th day of March 2025.
Seconded. Trustee Dalton, all in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful, so moved. Thank you. Complete?
Okay, so I guess I should move to topic 7.3. February
Thank you.
2025 operations department report. So I will open the floor for the trustees in case they have any question.
Thank you, and we have the acting director of operations at our meeting, so any questions can be directed to Mr. McElroy. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Sorry that trustee Horn isn't here for your first meeting because he will have many
We have a
questions.
million
for us.
questions. I actually have a question.
Okay, trustee Beal?
I'll do my best.
Trustee Beal?
So, Kevin, I go up to Westview because I live on Second Avenue, just down from school, and not gonna take up much of your time, but I go up there and walk my little chihuahuas. I see that that there's some activity still going on up there, like, has there been people burning things, kids burning over in that backfield?
Yeah.
We don't have a camera up there, but is that old or is that fairly recent? I just started taking them up there. I normally.
Yeah,
walk in
that's
different
been
directions.
there for a while.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm just concerned because you know it is a wood building and
yeah,
you know, the fires that's going on right now, like. I mean, you should know your brother's house was next to one that got,
yeah.
you know, arson, right? So I worry about our school.
We, I'd like to do a little bit of an, lighting upgrade. On it, now that we have special events in there, there's more activity,
Right.
which is. I get a couple of calls saying there's a van on the field or a truck and a trailer, so you know, hopefully the presence keeps people away. The vandalism seem, the writing on the school, it seems less now.
It is less.
The color we picked wasn't the greatest, but I got complaints because the paint, still stinks. So people are complaining when they're walking around. It's just
I didn't.
an old oil-based paint we had and we tried to match it.
Well, the building is old and it's boarded up, so
Yeah,
we take it as it is. I mean,
we
I
do
just
our
want
best.
to know about that burning because I was concerned about the arson going on in our community. I would really hate to see a school that I attended at one time.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Yeah,
I
don't
know.
wanna see it.
Thank you.
It was brand new then.
Thank you for your question. Any further questions for Mr. McElroy? Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Back to you.
so,
Okay.
sorry, so point 7.4, the February 2025 Information Technology Department report. So our friend Dinesh is there, so, in case you have any question for him.
Not gonna go into tonight. I was going to, but it's getting late in the evening.
Any questions for Dinesh? I'm not seeing any. Thank you both very much for what you
Thank
do
you.
and thank you for your report.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Dinesh. And the last point is 7.5, which is the board meeting schedule for 2025-26 on page 54. So if there is any question, please, you know.
I would just note that the first Tuesday is actually the fourth Tuesday,
Yes.
so just to note that.
Okay.
This is needing to be
November
approved.
fourth, which is the election, is that the one you're talking about?
No, September 23rd is the fourth, correct? It's the fourth Tuesday instead of the third,
Yes.
just because it's the start of the school year and we usually meet a week later.
Later.
And then the wishes are to approve this, I would think. Yes, we need a motion.
I make a motion to approve the board meeting schedule.
Thank you. Seconded trustee Meyer. Did anyone care to speak to this?
Looks good.
All right, all in favor? So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee reports, finance and building, trustee Meyer.
There was nothing but the amended.
All righty, 8.2 framework, Sandy Pond.
We met last week and also we met with the students at Charles Hayes, the student voice groups from PCS and Charles Hayes at lunch on Thursday as well. So we had some great conversation around data. So the purpose of putting this piece in for you is that this is the data from last year that the ministry has just made public facing. So I thought you'd want to look at it because there are things in here we hadn't seen until now, and that would be the grad rates in particular. And of course, they will have updated some other things too. So just, yeah, for your information.
It's a lot of great information, actually, Sandy. Thank you for putting it together because I want to really delve into that. And I think there's some.
Any questions? Trustee Beal,
I'd like to make a motion to extend the meeting in the event we need to.
thank you. Seconder? Trustee Sanchez, thank you. And all in favor? I don't think we have a choice.
Aye.
Thanks.
Yep.
Any shares or about this data? Please, trustee Meyer.
Yeah, I have two. I have a question and then a comment I'll do my comment first. On page 64, there was the student learning surveys, and if I'm reading that correct, we're the little yellow balls, right?
That's where we
Yeah,
are.
okay,
Yes.
which I love to see because it looks like we're kind of going in that forward motion and that we're kind of leading a lot in that. And I know that we haven't in the past where people, so it is great to see that school is a place where you feel belong and that you're cared about. And so I was really happy to see those numbers. I did have a question though. On page 62 and 63, and so the grade like 12 literacy marks, it looks like we're falling behind. In the grade 10 numeracy marks, it looks like we're falling behind. But then when you go to the next page on page 63, our completion rates are going up and forward. And I feel like one doesn't compute with the other. And so I'm just wondering where the gap is then. And how that can be, how can we be so high in our completion rates, but be so low in our literacy and numeracy rates? I don't understand.
It's a good question. The assessments, how do I say, these are provincial assessments.
Right.
So students are struggling with them, and we heard that a lot at Student Voice. We talked quite a bit about the assessments.
Okay.
There, back in the day when I taught math and we had the old provincial assessments, I would always make sure that when I was teaching the kids, we would do one question every day that was taken from a grade 10 or a grade 12 exam. So they got used to the language. But I don't know that our teachers are able to kind of help with that because the assessments are not as available as they used to be.
Okay.
So, the good news is students can write these assessments. The literacy assessments, the grade 10 assessments up to 3 times.
Right.
So they can write them in grade 10. And then they can write them again in grade 11, and they can write them again in grade 12. I don't know how many students are opting to do that. These assessments are. It's very, they're not always loved.
Right.
By students or teachers at this point. And I think our kids are just struggling with that in general. Now, completion rates are different in that to graduate, you don't necessarily need grade 12 math, you need grade 11 math. Right? So it's a different, we're talking 2 different things,
Apples
really.
to oranges.
Yeah.
And just for, I have a question and then trustee Beal, the grade 10, you're on page 62 of 78, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so grade 10 literacy, you can write that one, like, my understanding is in grade 10, you're gonna write that up to 3 times,
You can,
right?
if you
And
wish.
Grade 10, you're also, if you wish, you can rewrite numeracy.
Yeah, you can take it
Right.
next year.
And then nothing's written necessarily in grade 11, and then grade 12, you can write your literacy 12 up to 3 times.
Well, you can be in grade 11 and rewrite the numeracy 10.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can be in grade 12 and rewrite the numeracy 10. That's an option.
And
So we could be helping our students. That's maybe something to be thinking about and suggesting.
because we are tracking in each behind the norm. And, yeah, and please trustee Beal.
That's what I want to ask is the same thing because like. To graduate, it's grade 10, grade 10 for math, right?
Grade 11.
Is it grade 11?
Yeah.
Because I remember it used to be grade 10 years ago and
Yeah.
so they've upped the bar. So what I see here is even though it's trending down, they're still making the graduation rate because they're just barely making the pass mark for both subjects, which is not good. To me, it's a little, yeah. However, when you say they can write it 3 times in grade 10, Can they write it 3 times in grade 10 or 3 times grade 10 to 12?
3 times grade 10. to
So
12.
once in grade 10, and they could rewrite it in grade 11 or rewrite it in grade 12.
Yeah.
So they have options there.
Mhm.
But again, these numbers are skewed because we don't know what the real outcome is, right? Like we're missing data. There's those big gaps in between. And it's great information, but there's a lot of gaps. That's why I want to take them, and I didn't get to read it. I will not lie, like my agenda, I read most of it, but I didn't get to read this. I kind of got off track the last couple days with my work. So can't watch things, I get sick.
Trustee Dalton.
Thank you very much. You stole my question, so I'm gonna, it was an excellent question, by the way.
I bet it
It
was.
was damn good.
Damn
And
good.
so I don't care how many times they do. 3 exams, grade 10, 12, that's not moving the bar. Let's start. You said everything. So it's
That's
just
what I
not
just
moving
said,
the
it's
bar.
not moving the bar.
And then I get them, after they graduate, and they can't give me 10% of $10. And so. That's not good. Well, I'm gonna leave that at that, because you said everything.
They couldn't help
Thank you very
that
much.
change, honestly. Thank you. Thank
Any further questions on this document?
No, thank you. I mean,
Trustee Gucci? No, wonderful. Thank you so much. Ms. Hong. And Provincial Council, Trustee Sanchez?
I just want to say that, I did not go to the provincial council. And what I did, James asked me if I could report to you people. So what I have here with me is a review of the bylaws, from and I will read them to you. I will specifically deal with the new sets the new reports that were there.
And all of this is accessible to us,
Yeah,
correct?
it's
Yes,
accessible.
and
Yeah.
so you will have to be able to look at that yourself. So, and also, I just wanted to, oops, sorry. I'm missing this page already. Sorry, good fine, anyway. The terms of reference for this committee, the committee, they wanted it to examine to a diversity, equity, and inclusion and decolonizing lens. Okay. Phase 2 actually is a substantial modernization of the bylaws, since much of the language was written long ago and both legislative frameworks and practices have changed. So, as the committee proceeds, referrals to current standing committees and working groups for advice and freedom will be needed, again, through Diversity, Equity and Inclusion and Indigenous Education Committee. The timelines and frequency of the meetings will be called by the chair and maybe in person or on Zoom. But actually, what's really happening here is phase 2 is also the focus of updating language. And there was a intentional focus on membership bylaw, which is 1, provincial council bylaws 6 and 7, delegates and voting powers at general meetings, which is bylaw 9, committee bylaw 11, and district branch associations, which was bylaw 19. There are a whole lot of changes in these documents as was presented. A number of these changes do not alter the intent of the bylaw and are housekeeping in nature. When we talk about housekeeping, it's just a matter of tidying up the spelling and the grammar in the context of amending laws or policies. And housekeeping refers to changes that are minor, non-substantive and administrative in nature. All proposed natures changes have been vetted by the committee as well as have been reviewed and adjusted by legal counsel. Phase 2 of this work will be working on the following dates: June 24th, September 16th, October 11th, October 28th, and November 23rd. What I'd like to do here now is to tell you about the bylaw revisions to date. And I'm just going to, the new ones, the memberships, the changes in the section had several housekeeping changes. But now it's changed and there are new changes that were passed. For example, membership 1 was the affiliate membership, there are new changes there. And the affiliate membership in the association may be granted to boards in other jurisdictions to serve K-12 education. Boards wishing to affiliate members must have operated for more than 5 years unless otherwise determined by the board of directors, and must meet the requirements of their provincial, territorial, or other responsible government to exist as a board with the insight of public education in their jurisdiction. A board
Trustee Sanchez, what I would say is much of this is maybe not even for the open, for the public. This,
Okay.
I think is work of the board. And so that we can go through the portal of the BCSTA and find this as it's pertinent to us and not necessarily to an open meeting. Does that
Okay,
sound
so I
fair?
just wanted to let you know then that the affiliate membership, there were new changes, and that's why I wanted to mention that to you. And then there were also housekeeping, but I wanted to make sure that you knew that there's a lot of housekeeping in the different bylaws. And quite a few of them, like vacancies on the board of directors duties and powers. But this is new, and this one had to do with number 8, bylaw number 8, provincial council duties and powers, and I'd like to read that to you. The provincial council's responsibility are to support the board of directors in advancing the mission and goals of the association, and to review and approve the annual budget of the association as presented by the Finance and Audit Committee. James wanted me to read this to you.
Thank you.
Okay, and the provincial council shall approve the annual budget of the association, the total fees to be collected from member boards, and the criteria for the determination of individual member fees, which criteria shall be used by the board of directors when establishing the appropriate fee for each member.
Wonderful. And I would say again, this is not necessarily open meeting business, definitely board work.
Okay,
So-
just want to let you know
Yes,
that.
and
And the
we'll-
other one,
Tell James that you did your duty to him.
that 22, but there's one last one that I wanted to tell you that we had was bylaw 17 was deleted, so we don't have to do that anymore. And that's a new one by bylaw 18. And what is new was the district branch association was the Councils Scolaire Francophonie de la Columbia Britannique, which is a CFS, right beside you, may attend and vote at meetings of the branch associations where its schools are located. That is new.
Wonderful, thank you. And
Okay.
again, this is internal work of the board, not necessarily for an open meeting. Thank you.
And that is it.
Thank you.
Thank you so
And
much.
we can find all of that information in the portal.
I just want to let you know it's here for you.
Wonderful, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Great. Policy committees, the meetings are in front of you. And the vision and mission has gone out to the partner groups, is my understanding, and it's come back with no. Is that true?
Correct.
Wonderful. It's come back with no referrals, comments, recommendations.
Is that, which one is that?
That is the policy for approval.
Oh, yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve 8.4.2.1611 vision mission And foundational principal policy.
Wonderful, thank you. Seconded trustee Meyer, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. And 8.4.3, these are policies for a review. And I would share that these are new policies. We had a district conflict of interest policy, however, this has expanded greatly on it. And the next policy is 6290, which is a specific trustee conflict of interest policy.
I make a motion that 6280 district conflict of interest and 6290 trustee conflict of interest be sent to our stakeholders.
Seconded trustee Dalton, did you care to speak to that?
So they're actually, I like to clean up on them.
Wonderful. Motion on the floor to send out, all in favor?
Aye.
District Technology Steering Committee, trustee Horn is not here. Did you meet? Wonderful. Thank you so much. Whole business?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are no items for old business.
Right. And new business
New business,
in your packet.
tonight, in your package, we have, on page 75. What I'm seeking today is an approval in principle, so that, Kevin and I and others on staff can pursue the matter and come up with realistic costs so that we have a balance.
I'd like to make that motion, but I think this is fabulous.
Wonderful. Do you have a seconder to that motion?
Second.
Trustee Mark. Did you care to say anything further on this motion?
I'm gonna push for that to go all the way.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there anything else?
No,
you'd like
it's,
to say?
it's very clear in the thing. I just
Yes.
need the
It was very
approval in
clear.
principle, not the approval of the project,
Right.
because there's a lot of
Yeah.
information that we need to bring you,
Yes.
so you know what the liability is.
So this is a
That's
motion
right.
for an approval of principle for Andrew and select staff to investigate what this looks like. further.
Investigate.
Seconded by trustee Meyer. Did you
Before
care
we-
to speak?
Before we adopt, just a question. So, in principle, I assume that you're gonna be bringing back, full details of liability, benefits, future costs, those
Sure.
kinds of things, right?
Correct,
Thank you.
impairment to the land,
Okay,
et cetera.
okay.
Yeah.
Any further questions regarding this motion? Not seeing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the fish processing proposal at the last, I can't remember, we did talk about it briefly. What we're looking at is this would be a facility that would be an addendum to the kitchen that's being built here. It would allow community groups and families to come here. Yes, they would require, food safe training. There would be a supervisor here in the building. There would be a fee if it's not cleaned, at the end of the thing. Also, we would, for safety, the model we're looking at is we would sell the jars or the cans that would be used, so that there's a standardization that fits with our equipment.
Trustee Dalton.
600% behind that. Can't wait until it happens. Yes, I know there's liabilities and all. I know that, but we've got the people to be able to make that happen.
Yes, and what is your request on this one?
My request is the same, the approval in principle to have Kevin and I and Nadia to further this, to make sure we give you a very complete picture of everything.
Wonderful. And a seconder to this motion? Trustee Sanchez, and my note on this is the very last line, just what it means to act as an incubator for entrepreneurs, legalities, those kinds of, that's an extra layer just to be noted.
Yes.
Any further comments, questions on this? Trustee Pucci?
I believe there's a grant for commercial kitchen through NDIT. I can verify that and send it to you tomorrow, Andrew.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bet.
Motion on the floor in principle, all in favor? Wonderful. So information items, spring break is rapidly approaching March 17th to 28th. Our next open meeting, please everyone attend in the public regarding our budget, which we call it the ABC meeting, is April 7th. The Board of Education meeting is April 14th, and my understanding is we will be looking at the budget again on that date. Good Friday is April 18th. That's the day between a month. Easter Monday is April 21st. Professional Development Day regionally is April 25th, and the BC STA AGM is the 25th and 26th of 2025. And now we have 10 minutes for any questions. Any questions connected to the agenda going once? Going twice? Not seeing any. Thank you all so much for staying extra late with us tonight. Happy March break to those that get it, and thank you very much.